Today we're going to do some printmaking and I'm excited and nervous. So when lockdown hit 4 years ago, I got really into printmaking. I'd never tried it before, but it's one of those things that takes a lot of time to learn and patience to get a hang of the process, and also just experiment and try out different methodologies, different papers, different inks, and learn what works for you. It's also a very lengthy process, which when life got back to more normal, I did not have time for all the patience, and I switched to watercolour painting, which is a lot more accessible, transportable, easy to clean. So I haven't done it in ages, but I want to start up with printmaking again to complement some of my paintings. And I had a go with some of the materials that I had in my drawers, and managed to print this last weekend or over this week. This was my most successful print, which is still pretty sketchy. If you look at it close up, there's a lot of marks that shouldn't be there. It's not very clean. I really like the colours individually, but I don't think they work together. I don't think this green background really helped. I think some of the lighter colours should have been used for the details rather than the other way around. So basically, take two, try again. Made a few sketches, very rough, coloured in with felt tips, where I imagine some of the colours are. The thing about printmaking is you have to decide what the image is going to look like before you start, which with painting is something I don't usually do. I have like a bit of an idea in my head and then just start and see where it takes me, whereas this is like, I need to know what the output is and then plan backwards. So this is what I've done the sketch, and then the next thing I do is work out how many colours I want to use and typically list out the colours that I've got and decide which order is the best to print them in. So you kind of want to print the colours that cover the most surface area first, so work from backdrop to small finer details at the end. Also bearing in mind that some of the colours layer differently. So like, for example, this pink was quite hard to print on top of the green, so it looks a lot more faded and less bright than I would have liked. So yeah. So what I've done now is take my woodblock and sketch out my design, which I'm a little bit scared about. I think it's going to be too detailed. Which means there will be mistakes, but I don't want to hold myself back, so we're going to do it. We're going to try it out. The next thing to do is the most boring part, which is setting myself up with the paper and the registration. So every layer needs to be printed in the same place, otherwise you'll have misaligned prints, which completely ruins it. So the best way to do that I found is use these registration tabs. So they look like this, and this is about as makeshift as it gets, I suppose, but it works perfectly well. So what I've got here is an old sketch pad at the back of, and these metal tabs are the life partner of these plastic things. So they have gone there. So you put these on the paper, attach these to the paper, then they have gone there, and then you put your block here, like this, and they print. So I just need to cut the paper to size, tape the registration tabs in the right place. It's now finally time to print the first layer of this block. So what I've done is carve out the areas where I want to leave just white on the page. So you take away the colour you want to leave. So this will be the colour of the page. And then the first layer I'm going to do will be like an off-white to indicate the shadows in these white flowers. I'm excited to see this come to life, but it's a long road ahead. So now I'll mix the ink in my new tray. So I've started by carving out the white flowers on the left there. I think these fine details are actually my favourite part of the print. The inks I'm using are called Safe Wash inks, so they act like an oil paint, but they're as easy to clean as a water-based ink. Actually, I don't need to unwrap this one because I just use it to replace this tub. The problem with this is it's a little bit old, so when I opened it up, there's like a skin on it where the ink has dried, unfortunately. But if you lift the skin, there's some, that sounds so gross. If you lift the skin, there's fresh paint underneath, so fresh ink underneath. So there is a little bit left in there. So I don't need this just yet. I try and use a clean palette knife whenever I go in this, but as you can see, I'm pretty lazy.
What happened in the recent, we ended up focusing particularly on Elgin American and J.M. Fisher. They both made various types of eye. There was a huge...
I find this to be a very satisfying and soothing part of the process. The ink is just such an interesting texture. It's so sticky and buttery.
Elgin American went back to the 1990s.
Aside from my new orange colour, the only colours I actually have are blue, red and yellow and white. Theoretically, you can mix any colour from these primary colours. But I do find this red is a very blue red, which is why I went ahead and got the orange. Watching the mixing in fast forward is quite satisfying. But do let me know if this is something you find interesting or not to watch. If you do want to mix a super light colour, what I tend to do is mix a concentrated version of the colour before adding the white, and then once I'm happy with like the concentrated version, I then add it to the white, because if you keep adding paint to the white, you'll end up with a darker colour than you actually want. So the wrong colour and a darker colour, if that makes sense. This is kind of the texture you're aiming for. It's like a suede or like velvety texture is how they describe it. You basically want it to be thin, even coverage on your roller, which, oh god. This is definitely the most satisfying part of the printmaking process, is peeling away the paper once you've got a layer of ink down. But this is layer 1, so we've got a long way to go before this starts to look like anything. I really have to make sure that the block is tucked securely in that corner, because if that's not fully tucked in, this whole print is going to be misaligned. Now, I couldn't share the printmaking process without showing you some of the cleaning that's involved, because every single layer of ink has to be cleaned away from the roller and the block and the whatever surfaces it's covering. And sometimes, because I've got 12 editions that I'm doing, I clean the block between editions as well to make sure the ink is the right consistency. So it's a lot of cleaning, and you can see why I use the Safe Wash inks rather than the oil-based ones, which would be a lot harder to clean. As you can see, I have marked out in pink on the block where I want to cut away. Sometimes it's just helpful to draw with a pencil or pen, because you get a different type of mark making than you would do just cutting straight into the block with the knife. If you try and imitate, whether it's a brush stroke or pen and ink, you get a different type of mark that you're recreating. Now for the layer of pink ink. Well, one of them, there was I think 3 layers of pink ink in this print. So this is day 2. It's Sunday. I did not get as much done yesterday as I really wanted to, but it's partly because I made a mistake, which no, I did not film. I started cutting in my block thinking it was the next layer, so I was missing a layer of ink. Fortunately, this is early on enough in the process where I wasn't covering anything up, so I just inked the other side of the block to get that bit of colour on paper that I needed. So then I had to print all 12 editions with this extra colour. Then I went back and carried on. So the current image we've got is this, which doesn't look like much at the moment. This is the area where I'd cut out these like shadows on the petals without actually having any shadow colour underneath. You can see we've got the white flowers. I'm just going to come out. Nice. This is why things go wrong. So I've got the white flowers here at the moment, white flowers at the top, pink flowers coming through. So I'm going to go for a run this morning, but before I go I wanted to print this next layer because I am conscious that this ink takes quite a long time to dry, and if I'm printing wet ink onto wet ink, it's not like oils where you know, you'll get cracking or anything, but it's harder to print, I think, and the colours won't come through as strongly. So if I'm layering different colours over the top, they're not going to come through as well. So I mean, the ink will take days to dry, so I'm actually not sure how much difference a couple hours will add, but I'm going to give it a go. So yeah, so this is what the block is looking like at the moment as well. So I've cut out all of this flower here now and the white flowers. Then the colour I'm going to now mix is a even darker pinky purple for the flowers in this part of the image. Once that's done, essentially those pink and white flowers will be done, and then we can move on to the greens. It's going to be a busy day, but hopefully it all goes well, because otherwise I'll be in a bad mood. We also had quite a lot of leftover ink yesterday, so I started cutting the second block, which is a much simpler design because I just wanted to use the pink on the flower. So I've got the lovely butterfly that came into my garden, like the same flower, it's this flower here. It's in this print, so that'll be a nice duo. This is the colour I'm going for, like this pink shadow. So I think it could be a little bit darker even. Rather stupidly, I've been putting my prints on this shelf to keep them dry and separated from each other. And you'll find out later why that was such a stupid idea. After I'd seen the first print, I decided I want to cut away a little bit more from the block, so I am doing that whilst the ink is still there, but I will clean the block afterwards. At least I think I did, because if you cut away and there's wood shavings, they will stick to the paint. My trusty spoon is actually a very effective tool for burnishing a print. See the so in the top one I've taken away a little bit more. And now I've got to print this 12 times. Don't worry, I didn't film every single one, but it just gives you a sense of how long and time consuming this process is. I also really need a bigger desk, but I do like how old-fashioned this little dark wood desk is. So it fits the bill for now. Often I would check the prints and the ink wasn't coming through as I'd like, so I'd have to print them several times. Okay, so now these pink layers are done. I've been for my run, I've had my shower, and back to concentrating, getting the green started, which I think will really help bring this to life because it doesn't look like much at the moment. This is the block at the moment. Next step is to carve out these pink flowers. Basically everything that was printed the layer before that you want to keep, you have to carve away. Them's the rules. Hello, I thought I'd check back in. Been doing a lot, but it doesn't feel like a lot's happened on the page. I've got the green, dominant green colours in. I had a tough time getting it to go over the pink, the dark pink, so I had to print twice with a lot of them, which really has taken out of me. But I'm still going. I've still got a lot of green ink that's wet, so I'm going to carry on. The next layer is actually going to be the poppy and orange colours in this left hand side, because I think they're going to be quite hard to print over the dark green that goes next after that. So it's a bit of an experiment. I'm going to see what happens. I'm hoping it works. This is the block at the moment, so you can see a lot of it has actually been carved away now. This feels like progress. This not so much. I think once the butterfly comes to life and the poppy's there, that will make a big difference. What time is it? It's like 6:30 now, so I've been doing this for 7-8 hours today. I've been a few pretzels. So I've never used this orange colour before, so I just wanted to test out how it mixed with the red and with this yellow as well. I'm looking for a colour to do this poppy with, but the red is not quite right and the orange is not quite right, so we'll see how this goes. Spoiler alert, but I do actually think the colour in the end that I used wasn't right. It was too orange, but I can't go back now. Here I'm trying to mix the colour of that sort of heart-shaped leaf there. At first I thought it was quite like a minty green, but actually it's very yellow. Hashtag colour mixing problems. You can see I'm doing the same thing again, where I'm making the darker colour correctly and then mixing it with the white once I'm happy.
So, given this.
So, day 3. I've finished my day of work. It's 5:30, so I'm going to try and get this print done tonight. See how it goes. This is actually the most exciting part, so if you've stuck with me, thank you. It still looks very abstract and you can't tell what anything is, but the next, well, I'm going to do next 2 layers. I think this will all start to come together and make sense, so that's exciting. The one thing I do regret at this point is actually the colour of this poppy. I think I went way too orange with it, so that's sad, but you know, you win some, you lose some. You can start to see the butterfly coming out. This is where the poppy is in the orange I'm talking about. At this stage as well, I've got at least 10 prints in this edition that have gone okay, so that's quite good. Normally I get quite a few that don't go so well, or they get like smudged or something prints incorrectly, so to have 10 I'm pleased with. I want to see if I can reuse this ink from yesterday because there's quite a lot of it left and I just need a darker green. But there's a risk that the ink might be too dry and then leave like bits in it. We'll see. I hate wasting ink, it's so expensive. So this is one of the biggest decisions of the print from a colour perspective. So I'm trying to decide what to fill the background essentially with. And my initial thinking was to do quite a dark green that almost represents the soil. But actually when I looked at it, I just really didn't like the colour and I thought it's going to take up the majority of the print. So I want to really enjoy looking at that colour. So I decided to go with more of a leafy green. That's not a very good word to describe it because they're all leaves in this picture, but it's more of a typically leafy green. But my problem then is that it wasn't covering up where the red had been from the print layer before. So this was a nightmare to print because I had to make sure that the green was covering up the red underneath. You think these inks are opaque and then you layer them up like this and it surprises you every time. I think this bit needs to come out, so just quickly. So before it all goes wrong in a second, this is as good a time as ever to ask you to please follow me on Instagram, TikTok if you use TikTok. I share way more of my art on there and it's so nice to have your support, so thank you. And now for the disaster. So it turns out I was a bit optimistic. This last layer or last couple of layers are not going very well. This one lost one of its registration tabs, so getting that print to line up was nigh on impossible. So it's all smudged now. And if you look closely, you know the greens don't line up at the top anymore, which sucks. You put all this work in and then it just goes kaput at any moment. But you know, this one has also not printed very well. There's just quite a few that haven't printed very well. It was always a risk. I think leaving the background till last was always a risk. But it's the worst thing to have got this far and then fall at the last hurdle. But I should have a couple of good prints. So as long as I have one or two, I mean, what am I going to do with them? Yeah, sad times. The worst failures were the ones that fell on the carpet, so they have fluff on them, which is just fucking annoying. I can't pull the fluff off because the ink is so sticky still that it just kind of messes with the ink and ruins it, so that was fucking dumb. I need to get a shelf or like find a way to hang them up in future because that's just really annoying. I'm gonna have to pull my shoulders back if I film from this angle because I am hunched over like this most of the time. In reality, I actually like to ink and print standing up because I think sitting down you're working from this angle rather than down. So I'm going to do that, which means I'm just going to be filming my ass if I do that. So I think this one might actually be the best print, and even that is imperfect. I'm using this little cotton bud to catch anywhere where the ink shouldn't really be. If I just smudge it, that's kind of enough for it not to print. This is the last layer now. Okay, so this is the moment we've all been waiting for. It's the final reveal of one of the good prints, may I add. I think this is one of the ones. Oh, this one is slightly different. This one I started with a darker colour on it, but I don't think there's too much wrong with the print itself, so I'm going to keep it. That's probably the only thing I might be able to fix that. So they're officially done. I finished them all last night and I've just laid them out on the table this morning in this beautiful morning glow. And what a journey it's been. Thank you if you are still watching, that's incredible. Thank you for coming along on the journey. I will be releasing these prints either just in digital form or maybe a few of these I will feel confident enough to put in my shop. I'm going to wait for the ink to dry, both literally and just in my mind, because I don't want to send out work that's imperfect, but it is the nature of printmaking that every edition is different and there's imperfections. So I guess it would be good to get feedback whether people would be interested in this work that's it's not AI, it's not perfect, it's got little smudges and handmade imperfections. Proud of myself. This is definitely not the end of my printmaking journey, but just the beginning. Yeah, have a great day wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Please share in the comments your thoughts, any questions you have on printmaking. If I can help, I will. I hope this has inspired you to try something new and maybe outside of your comfort zone. Thank you.